Hey all, here at OS Reviews. Today we're taking a closer look at the Plimpton PlimPad P60. This is the first time we're checking out one of their products, but they do specialize in tablets, and the P60 is a model which has a 2-in-1 optional keyboard dock which you can snap into place and transform it into a pseudo laptop with a trackpad. Now this sells for around $200, so it's not going to be too expensive. Still is a relatively budget Android tablet, but not necessarily as dirt cheap as some of the $100 devices that we've seen as well. But you are talking about better specs and also a all-metal build to go with that price range. Now notably, this is powered by the extremely popular at the moment Unisoc T610 processor. Among a few other tablets already have used this chip, which is a pretty good mid-tier chip, to be honest. It's clocked up to 1.8 gigahertz, it's octa-core, and it's a little bit faster than a Snapdragon 665. So good enough again for the price range. Otherwise, it is powered by Android 11, pretty stock version of the OS. 10.1-inch display here is a full HD resolution, 6 gigabytes of RAM, and 128 gigs of built-in storage. So that's actually the identical specs as the Umidigi F3S, but obviously now in a tablet form. Other brands that this is competing against would include VasKing, along with, again, Amazon's Fire tablets, can all be found at, again, around the same range that we're talking about here. Right, so inside of the box, aside from obviously the tablet itself, we do get just the standard array of USB Type-C charging cable, very standard stuff these days, a wall adapter, and there's also just a quick user guide, along with a slot there to pop out the micro SD reader, although this is not a cellular tablet, so you can't use this for making calls. There is no 4G data on this model. Then just taking a closer look at the design here, we are talking about pretty slim bezels, I have to admit, for a tablet in this price range. It looks quite sharp, everything seems symmetrical, and the entire chassis of this tablet is constructed out of a chunk of metal, so it feels very solid, and I do really like the design here with this very sharp, obvious chamfered edges going on. Actually reminds me of something like an HTC 10 from back in the day, a very utilitarian look, but also gives off a super premium feel, no bends or anything like that, very hefty and cold to the touch. The back here also houses the aforementioned 13 megapixel autofocus enabled camera with an LED flash. It does protrude a little bit, but it's not too bad, doesn't really wobble when you put it down at the very least, and again, just a very sleek finish, doesn't attract too much fingerprints. There's a small strip of plastic for the antennas. Top here just houses the micro SD card slot, 3.5mm headphone jack. Left-hand side houses a power key and a volume rocker, which are all made out of metal. They feel very tactile and clicky, and the power key here also has a red accent on it. It's very springy and nice to click on. There's also the Type-C port there for charging, and finally on the very bottom you do get stereo speakers to get you a little bit of separation, and the pogo contacts for the optional keyboard dock, which again is not included out of the box, unfortunately. So overall, I think the design here and the build are definitely highlights for this price. Turning things on, we are greeted to a pretty sharp and vibrant looking screen, an IPS LCD screen which has colors that really do pop for, again, a non-AMOLED display, although I will say that there is a little bit of a gap. It's not maybe fully laminated, but you can still observe that ever so slightly when pointing to the light, a small distance between that LCD and the glass on top, but it's very faint, and for the most part, glare isn't too big of an issue considering that the screen does get plenty bright. The Android 11 experience is super clean with really no signs of any bloatware. You just get the standard Google apps, including access to the Play Store. Inside, there's a 7,000 milliamp hour capacity battery, which will get you through around 6 hours of screen on time. This is the tablet that, in my testing at least, I was able to use comfortably for a couple of days before I really needed to recharge it with lighter to moderate use. Anyways, in terms of the storage capacity, around 115 gigs are free out of the box. It's a pretty fluid and responsive experience, which is, again, typical for the Unisoc T610, which I do think is one of the better performing mid-tier to entry-level chips that we've been seeing recently. Camera experience is also average. I wouldn't say it's anything spectacular, but it's a tablet at the end of the day, so expectations should be more modest. At least it gives you a lot of different options that you can try out, including panoramic modes. You even get a pro mode for changing things like exposure and ISO if you want to get to that granularity. It's not going to outperform a smartphone camera, especially on flagships or pixels, but again, text details at least are clear enough for just scanning in and documenting or sharing when you are in a pinch. Otherwise, let's jump into, say, the web browsing experience next and try out something like The Verge, a pretty heavy page with lots of ads and different video elements and small text details. You can just tell how quick it was loading there. So again, the T610 is no slouch, again, for this price range, and actually doing a very good job. Things do look quite sharp, pinch to zoom feels responsive, everything is more than legible, a very comfortable web browsing experience, in fact, as you are navigating along. In my testing, I was able to jump back and forth between around 8 to 10 tabs, and things still felt pretty smooth and responsive without too many issues if you're doing a little bit of multitasking. And now time for a demo of watching back some YouTube videos, what the speakers sound like. Let's crank up the volume. So overall, it's pretty hard to cover up the speakers at least, and they do give you a little bit of stereo separation because they are on the left and the bottom right sides of the device. They get plenty loud, although at the maximum volume, I will say they sound a little bit on the sharp side. But overall, good enough for watching back some YouTube videos with. The screen can still glare a little bit if you're looking at darker backgrounds, but especially if you are, let's say, in slightly darker spaces, it can still look quite good. And for the most part, it's a comfortable experience thanks to that full HD resolution. Content still looks sharp, and details are quite nice. Otherwise, pretty quick in terms of loading and buffering. I didn't have to wait too long, so antenna reception quality retains as one of the strengths here with no real complaints, which is good considering the primarily all metal build here, but still we are getting pretty fast and responsive loading back speeds. Again, the T610 is very good in terms of general navigation. You won't find any hints of real lag, even if you are jumping around the UI. I can even do things like split screen multitasking, and that should still be a fast experience. You can just tell how quick it was there to load back things. On this particular tablet, it does come with a few more Google-specific apps, including a kids space area, which allows you to set it up for kids, and you can then partition off certain programs from being accessed, parental controls to see what your kids can do and watch if you want to use this for your kids to play around with. And as alluded to, because of the overall very good, and as alluded to, the T610 can handle itself quite well with a bit of moderate gaming. It's not going to be, again, a flagship processor necessarily for say the heaviest and most demanding of titles, things such as if you are playing back Asphalt or PUBG, you may still occasionally find a few more moments of hesitation, but it definitely is not bad, and for most titles and games that you would want to play from the store, it can more than handle really without any problems. Even the loading speeds are generally quite good when it comes to opening up these apps and programs. Things are still performing quite well here. So that's more or less it as far as our hands-on review of the PlimPad P60. Despite the slightly strange name there, I would say this is a very solid tablet at this affordable price. In terms of the build, it is top-notch with the metal frame and chassis. It just feels built like a rock. In fact, something that Apple, in fact, would make. That's how good the construction is. I would say its main selling point is also in that optional keyboard dock, which you should probably pick up if you're getting this tablet. Unfortunately, we didn't have this available at the time of this review, but that will allow you to more comfortably do things like email, typing out documents with a full QWERTY keyboard and touchpad when you need it. So again, I think this is a very solid tablet. Maybe the only potential con, or really the difficult part, has to be with the abundance of other models which is running on similar processor. For instance, just a while back we checked out the Kingston 10.1-inch tablet, also powered by the exact same Unisoc T610, so it's just pretty hard to stand out in this crowded space with so many manufacturers offering similar specs, the identical chip in fact at a similar price point. So it really is just a matter of preference, though on the PlimPad it definitely has a brighter screen. Both of these tablets right now are maximum brightness level, but you can tell how this one just shines through a bit more, although this model here does have 4G LTE and a completely laminated panel. So there's kind of pros and cons there, but like I said, ultimately it's probably the keyboard dock accessory which this can get you that would be the main differentiator versus some of those other alternatives which are missing that function. You can check out more details if you're interested in the links down below, again showing that these budget tablets are getting just more and more competitive with options to pick from, and all of them are doing a pretty decent job when it comes just to browsing the web and also using it for media and some light gaming. You can check out more details if you're interested. For now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS